Welcome and thank you for joining today's webinar. It is How Search Marketing Turned the Tide for CTV Audience Targeting, presented by Mountain and Search Engine Land. I'm Danny Goodwin, Editorial Director of Search Engine Land. And before we get started, I have a few viewing tips for you. If you have any audio issues, you can click the audio icon on your screen. If you have any viewing issues, you can use the Q&A section to communicate with us. And if you have any questions or comments, you can send those directly to the speaker about his presentation at any time. Joining us today is Tyler Young, Senior Digital Marketing Analyst at Mountain. Welcome, Tyler. Thanks so much for joining us today, and I will turn things over to you.
Great. Thank you, Danny, and thank you, everybody, for being here today. As Danny said, my name is Tyler Young. I'm a Senior Digital Marketing Analyst of paid media at Mountain. Just a little background on me. I've been in marketing for seven and a half years. Last 2.5 years have been here at Mountain. And sort of what I'm responsible for on a day-to-day basis is, getting campaigns live, monitoring them, optimizing them. And that goes for pretty much all of Mountain's paid media advertising, which includes both search and CTV. So today's topic, where we kind of combine the two of them, is one that I have daily experience with. And I'm excited to share, all this information with you today. And what I'm hoping to do in this session is to sort of destigmatize CTV advertising to a degree, and to prove that it's no longer this unique beast of a channel that you have to approach in a different way from anything else that you're really doing in your current marketing mix. And in fact, it's actually sort of a natural addition to what you're probably already doing, and it's capable of enhancing some of your lower funnel campaigns. So specifically, what we'll review in this session are these 3 bullet points. So first, we're going to talk about how performance marketing is a skill set that transfers from your existing paid media channels to CTV. And then we're going to discuss how you can succeed on CTV without really overhauling your approach at all. You can simply use the keywords that you're probably already implementing somewhere else in your strategy and carry them over to CTV. And then finally, we'll wrap up with a case study of a brand that has found success on CTV using that sort of keyword targeting I just mentioned. So let's talk about CTV for just a second. One of the key principles of marketing is to kind of meet people where they are. And what we're finding is that people are spending more and more time with their CTV. I mean, it's become the way to watch television as more and more people cut the cord of traditional cable packages. That's how I am. I'm sure that's how many people in our audience are today. But it's not just that. It's that CTV is also outpacing some other major digital channels. And in fact, I recently saw that more adults are using CTV even than Meta on a daily basis. And then in terms of the amount of time spent, CTV kind of blows Meta out of the water in that regard. Adults are on their CTV devices for 3 times the amount of time compared to Meta. And I think from the perspective of a search marketer, of a performance marketer, I find that really enticing, because I think many of us view Mountain Meta rather as a crucial channel to drive people down the funnel, leading them to search for our brand. It's natural to scroll through social media, see an advertisement, encourage someone, educate them, and then that person will then search for your brand on a search engine. And I think a lot of us would never really dream of turning Meta off, because we know that Meta has this huge user base, which makes it scalable and enables our brands to reach new audiences and generate demand. And the fact that CTV is outpacing, a key consideration channel like Meta or anything else tells me that it too is sort of becoming highly important to our marketing repertoire. And in fact, it actually serves to enhance our search campaigns with something that at Mountain we refer to as the halo effect, which we'll talk about that more later in the presentation. And if you're watching this today, I think the odds are probably that you either haven't really run CTV advertising, or maybe you are running it, but you're not happy with it. You're looking to improve it, and you're trying to learn some things here. And I know that can be pretty daunting. Something that can really be a pain as a marketer is bringing these new tools into the fold, and then you've got a learning curve to either train your staff or train yourself, and that can be really time consuming. And I think we all already have more than enough work to do on a day-to-day basis, that the last thing we need is something else to do, something else to learn on our plate. But something that's pretty neat about CTV, especially recently, is that as a performance marketer, you don't really need to learn all that much more. Of course, every platform has its differences in terms of, where the buttons are laid out, and you're going to have to sort those things out. But pretty much everything else is straightforward. If you know how a lot of the major channels you use work, you're going to know how a CTV advertising platform works. For example, campaign setup is really similar to search or social. You pick out the audiences, you add campaign details like a budget or a flight date, upload your creative, and then your campaigns can be live shortly thereafter. Once the ads are approved by the platform, in about a day, you're live and on TV really easily. Now, if you have run CTV campaigns in the past, or maybe you have some concerns about CTV, I think one issue you're probably thinking about is targeting. And for a long time, TV targeting has been pretty broad. And even after that, you get maybe data back from the campaign, and it's not really helpful. Maybe you get some high level metrics, but you don't really know too much beyond that. You don't know exactly what's driving the performance. You just know that you ran an ad, it got you these high level metrics, and you can't really go too more in depth than that. But a lot of that has changed now with the introduction of something called Mountain Matched. So as I just mentioned, before we get into exactly what Mountain Matched is, talking about traditional TV advertising and even some, CTV advertising of the past, was that it was very wasteful. You'd be stuck with, broad audiences that, it might include some folks that are interested in your brand, but it's also going to include a lot of people that probably have no intention of buying from your company. With traditional TV advertising, you're probably buying a channel or a family of channels that is going to be all sort of a mixed bag. And even with CTV advertising, because the targeting was so broad, if you have more of a niche product or service, it's tough to really, whittle down to your actual key audience. And of course, this is just never an ideal outcome for any channel, for any business, but I think it's especially hurtful for organizations that are working on slim budgets that, they desperately want to generate demand, but they can't necessarily risk flushing away just a bunch of spend on a channel that, might have limited performance, limited guarantees, limited transparency. And what I think Mountain Match does serve to do is kind of close that gap and give you that reassurance of your performance. So getting into what Mountain Match really is that it's a really exciting first in the world of CTV advertising. It allows marketers to use specific keywords to build out an audience and then run that audience on CTV. So rather than using the broad audiences of the past, Mountain Match enables you to connect with high performing audiences that your brand is going to resonate with. And those folks are more likely to take action, whether that's, visiting your site, filling out a form, buying a product, whatever you're describing as, a key event on your site from these campaigns. Mountain Match can help drive those. And I think something that seasoned marketers are probably going to recognize is that feels, really familiar to the major search and social channels that you're most likely already using, but it's pretty new for CTV. It's a channel that I think has previously been thought of as very broad and awareness based, and it can certainly still do that if that's what you're after with the channel. It can adjust to your needs, but Mountain Matched is a feature that's really focused on performance. So let's get into sort of the nitty gritty on how Mountain Matched actually works. So the Mountain system, what it'll do is you'll provide your URL to it and it'll analyze your website. And based on that analysis, it's going to create a keyword profile of your ideal customer. And what you'll get is a list of keywords that you can review. And if there's anything that maybe you find irrelevant, you can remove that from the list. You don't have to run it. And at the same time, if you feel the system has maybe missed out on some terms that you would like to include, you can include those as well. So it sort of simplifies things, but still gives you the customization that you want to have when you're running a campaign. And once you've okayed the keywords, Mountain Match is going to get to work on finding relevant consumers across the 99% of available homes in the US. And these are users that the Mountain AI believes are likely to purchase your products based on their shopping behavior, life events, or interests. And previous site visitors are going to be automatically excluded from this so that you can hone in on new customers. But as we'll talk about in a moment here, you can still certainly target previous site visitors if that's an audience that's important to you. And then finally, those users are going to get sorted into 3 buckets, which is high intent, medium intent, and maximum reach. And what those buckets are going to do is allow you to focus your budget on the goals that are right for you. So high intent users are users that are, really ready to convert today. They're actively researching and preparing a purchase decision. And certainly this bucket's going to be the smallest, but at the same time, these are people that the Mountain system is really confident fit your brand, fit what you're selling. And they, if you target this entire audience, you can maintain the same ROAS and CPA throughout. You're really not going to see a dip in performance because that's just how confident the system is that the folks that get into that high intent bucket are, really close to the very bottom of the funnel and ready to convert today. Then there's medium intent, which these are users that probably fit your brand, but they might not be quite at that high intent level. They're not quite at that point of conversion. They're probably likely to visit your website sometime soon and maybe consider your brand in the near future, flip through some pages on your website. And they represent a really good scaling opportunity, a retargeting opportunity. And you probably want to be top of mind for these folks, but they're a little bit farther away than the high intent group. And then finally, maximum reach are users that may not fit your ideal customer profile today, but they have a chance to in the future. And reaching them is really a good awareness opportunity. And if you have the budget to, it's a good way to stay, again, top of mind of these folks that could be relevant to you one day, maybe just aren't necessarily there at this exact moment. So once you build out each of these buckets, the Mountain system is going to show you how many people exist within each one of them. There's a screenshot here where, to the right there, rather, you can see the 3 different buckets of high, medium, and max reach. And it's also going to show you how much you could spend to reach them. And you can, of course, scale that spend to meet your goals and your budgets. If you don't have the budget to reach the whole high intent audience, that's perfectly fine. You can scale down. And the Mountain campaigns are automatically going to allocate budget to that highest intent bucket first. But again, like I just said, you can customize that. If you want to mix in all 3 buckets, you can do that. And it's easy to keep tabs on your campaign performance because you get access to real-time reporting. And this will show you how things are going at all levels of the campaign down to the keyword. You also get, more of your traditional statistics, by channel, by campaign. But I think the keyword level can be really interesting to find out what's working and what's not so that you can easily pivot and make changes based on the data that's at your fingertips and in real time. So something to note with Mountain Matched is that it doesn't exist on its own in the Mountain ecosystem. Mountain actually offers an entire suite of targeting options that includes Mountain Matched. So as I said before, retargeting is possible on Mountain. And I know that can be very crucial for a B2B advertiser in particular, but any advertiser, retargeting is possible. You can leverage your first party data and you have the ability to retarget users based on activities or locations that you find relevant. You also have the ability to run campaigns based on your CRM. You can upload the data and then allow the Mountain system to match it against users in 99% of available households. And because these targeting methods have improved performance for brands that run on Mountain, it's kind of served to democratize TV advertising to a degree. Budgets don't get wasted on TV the way that they used to. So you don't necessarily need to be a world-renowned brand with massive budgets in order to run on CTV. You can have much smaller budgets and still get really great performance. And in fact, 90% of Mountain clients are advertising on TV for the very first time, which is a fact that I know the organization's really proud of. So as mentioned earlier, CTV is actually becoming a really scalable channel that's not necessarily meant to replace any other channel, but rather really boost existing campaigns that you may have in Meta or Google or any other major channel that most of us run. I think us marketers understand that all these channels have a really important role. You don't necessarily want to pull one out and pluck another one in. It doesn't really work like that. And in fact, they actually really play quite nicely together. And the data that we have indicates that Mountain Performance TV in particular results in what we refer to internally as a halo effect. And what we mean by that is when you run Mountain ads for your brand at the same time as paid social, for example, you can expect about a 9% increase in your conversion rate on that paid social campaign. And for paid search, that jumps to 22%. And that's just for the absolute bottom of the funnel. Mountain PTV has also shown to produce longer website duration when compared to paid search or social, which is proof to me that it's not simply just a brand awareness play, although, like I said, you can certainly do that if that's what you prefer. But ultimately, it becomes a performance channel that is driving this high intent traffic that I think we're all really after, and that is genuinely considering your brand for their purchase decision. And speaking from firsthand experience with Mountain Zone ads, we run, video ads on Mountain Performance TV. And just like any other brand, we have seasonal pushes and pullbacks. We spend more certain times a year. We go a little bit quieter other times a year. And it's actually really amazing to see the way the numbers jump when we really put the pedal to the metal, especially branded search just kind of explodes when you start running these performance television campaigns. So before we wrap up, I just want to show you all an example of a brand that is using Mountain and finding success with Mountain Matched. So Groomy Club, for those that aren't familiar, is an e-commerce brand that sells precision head shaving products. And it's a bit of a niche that's different from traditional razors that maybe they target all men of a certain age. Instead, they're focused on a population that is specifically looking for something that is meant to shave your head, which is, a bit different from your face or anywhere else. And what they wanted to do, obviously, was expand their customer base and grow sales, which is, a very common, understandable goal that I think most businesses have. But the trouble they have run into is that their product is pretty unique. So it was kind of tough to find a customer base and reach these really specific audiences. So they turned to Mountain and the Mountain Match targeting tool to help solve this problem. And the results, as you can see here, are pretty extraordinary. After starting their Mountain CTV campaign with Mountain Match targeting, Groomy Club experienced a 24% increase in conversion rate, 3x higher visit rate to their site, 2.3x improved ROAS, and then that came as a result of a really massive increase in their CTV investment year over year. And then you can see the quote here from their co-founder, which I find pretty interesting, which is saying that they've almost doubled the revenue they are generating from CTV simply from leveraging Mountain Match compared to traditional CTV advertising. And fortunately, Groomy Club is still a really top performer for Mountain today. So to recap everything that we've covered, first, CTV has grown a lot in recent years. It's maybe different than you thought of it a couple of years ago, and it now resembles many of the tools that marketers have used for a long time and are likely still using today. So, the learning curve that we've talked about and that you may think about when you get a new channel and have perceived it that way is quickly starting to evaporate, and it's very natural to go from some of these other top platforms to a CTV advertising platform. And the ability to target by keywords has improved control over CTV campaign targeting, which has turned it into like a full-blown performance channel. Your CTV campaigns can now mirror what you're doing on search. And then finally, because CTV is now so similar to the channels that you know and trust, it doesn't have to be an afterthought. It can now be added to your marketing stack and effectively empower the other channels. And that is going to conclude my slides, and I'll pass it back to you, Danny, for the Q&A portion.
All right, great. Thank you. Fantastic presentation. If you have any questions about anything you've just seen, now's your chance to ask them in the Q&A section. To kick us off, a question for you for Mountain. How do you think about balancing your CTV initiatives with your other digital channels?
Sure. So yeah, like I've said before, it's really about a marketing mix. I don't think anybody would advocate for replacing a channel with Mountain or with CTV. It's about finding the right balance of demand generation and new demand generation and existing demand generation. So I think you want to keep an eye on your other channels. I think what we found before is, you've got a branded search campaign going. Maybe is your search volume starting to lag? Maybe that indicates that they don't know about you. They're not seeing you. CTV could be an option there. But you never want to, replace anything with another. It's all about the balance and the marketing mix. And you have to test and learn and figure out what works for you. You know what your budget looks like. Maybe some wiggle room you have. And if CTV is something you've been thinking about testing, maybe use that budget that you've got, run what you can, and see how it works for you. And you can kind of scale from there, because we're kind of in a new age where budgets you're not restricted by budget as much. Like I said earlier, you don't have to be some multinational brand to be capable of running on CTV. So do what you can, learn from the tests, and scale from there.
Awesome. So how does Mountain's matched audiences sort of compare to regular CTV targeting? Can you reuse the same keywords that you would use for search with that?
Yeah, that's what we did. We pretty much looked at what our search campaigns were, what was performing the best. And like I said, we run our own CTV ads. We implemented them in our own performance TV campaign, and have, again, scaled from there and tested from there. You may find new keywords in search that are working for you, and you can try those in performance TV, and they might not work as well in there. But yeah, you can use the exact same keywords, because again, they're based on the same principles as search. So if there is search volume for it, then there is an audience out there for it, and those folks probably are watching something on CTV. And like I said, Mountain PTV specifically can reach up to 99% of available households. So I would try it there as a starting point. And like I said, maybe there's reason to expand, maybe to go broader if that's matching your goals. But yeah, I would start with what works for you in your search campaigns, and go from there.
Great. Thank you for that. So if somebody wants to start with CTV, add that to their strategy, but maybe they don't have any video assets, do you have any kind of advice for how people can get started there?
Sure. I think the first thing I would say is to really think about it and determine if you truly don't have any video assets. I think a lot of brands do run video in some way, shape, or form in their marketing mix. Maybe they've got videos on social, or they've got YouTube videos. They've got some presence somewhere that they're maybe not thinking can work for a CTV ad. Really, the only restriction on CTV is going to be length. I think typically a lot of these platforms limit you to 15 or 30-second spots. So there may be some editing to do there of existing assets that you have. But I would imagine you probably do have something in your repertoire that you can repackage for CTV. Like, speaking for Mountain specifically, we run YouTube campaigns, we run Performance Max campaigns, we run campaigns on LinkedIn and Facebook, and we reutilize a lot of those ads on CTV, and again, find success with them. And again, it's all about testing what you have and what you don't. Of course, if you absolutely have nothing, you're going to have to create them from something, whether that's working with an agency or a freelancer. But again, I would encourage people to really think hard about what they've truly got in their mix, and think about a way you could repackage something on CTV. It doesn't necessarily have to be this massive, grandiose 30-second spot. It could be something that has worked for you on social, and you can try it again on PTV.
Great. Okay. Let's dive into some more questions. Christine had a question for you. Where are you getting data for targeting? Do you use IP addresses? And how about tracking UTMs?
Sure. So yeah, I'll be honest about the technology behind it, that I'm not super familiar with what the exact technology of Mountain is. An engineer would be able to tell you exactly where that is coming from. But I believe we're using similar technology that Google or any of the channels are with compiling these audiences, in terms of if you're searching for something, they can cookie you and put you into an audience that we can then leverage and connect you to other devices that are on your internet connection or have logged into similar profiles or something like that. But again, the technology part of how they do it, I'm not exactly sure on. But I don't think it's too dissimilar to what some of the other major platforms are doing.
Cool. Okay. Question. Next one is from Delight. I like that name. If you have 10 keywords, how do you know which ones are working and not working to add or delete?
Yeah, absolutely. So One of the cool things about Mountain Matched is that there is real-time reporting that you can dig down into the keyword level, and you can look at the 10 keywords you're running and see what have been getting impressions, what have been getting conversions, what have been getting visits, and you can make decisions based on that. Maybe a keyword you really thought was going to pop off is struggling, and you can remove it or you can keep it and you can add other, variations of it. But yeah, the Mountain platform gives you the ability to look at things similar to how you can in Google. You can go down to the keyword level and see what's really working. It works very similarly in Mountain Matched.
Great. Okay. Yeah, if you have any more questions for Tyler, ask him now. He's here to answer as many as we can here. Next one, let's see. Okay, next question. I have a limited budget. Is there an efficient way to add CTV to my performance strategy?
Sure. So again, I think this applies, there's no one size fits all. There's no like, oh, if you spend X amount of dollars, you're going to get Y number of results. It really applies to what makes sense to you and your business and the budget that you have. So I think you start with what you can and align your audience and goals based on that and be realistic about it. If you have, $5,000 to spend, you're not going to reach every single person in the world that might be interested in your product, but it's a place to start and it's what you can afford. And I think with this Mountain Match technology, you can let it, kind of skim your website, build that audience for you, and you'll find, wow, for 5K, I can reach this many people. And that's a good position to start. You can run it for a month or whatever you think fits, and then scale from there. And you might find, yeah, 5K is about right. Or wow, if we really want to make the most of this and we saw great results, we need to double it. And, maybe that means changing things around or reallocating funds. But I think, yeah, you run what makes sense for your business, you test it out, you learn from those tests, and you kind of scale from there based on what you can actually do and what makes sense for your goals.
All right. And with that, I believe we are out of time. That's all the time we have today. So if we didn't get to a question that was in there, we'll be sure to pass it along to Mountain, or if you want to throw it in really quick before we close out, now's your last chance. So on behalf of Search Engine Land, I want to thank Tyler for his engaging presentation and everyone in our audience for attending this webinar. We hope you join us again soon. Thanks.